Well, it would be super nice if decluttering was just cut or dry. You keep it or you don't. But unfortunately, there's actually a lot of emotions and feelings and sometimes stress wrapped up into it. So this is the second video in our Minimalism Back to Basics series. So here's what we're going to talk about today. What is decluttering? The 3 B's, the 3 things that you should have with you at all times when you're decluttering to make it go twice as fast. We'll answer the question, where is the best place to start when you're decluttering? And then we'll also give some different guidelines or criteria or questions that you can ask yourself while you're decluttering. And then once all the stuff is boxed and bagged up, what do we do with it? So we're gonna cover that today, along with some frequently asked questions. So this is video 2 in our series. You can find a link to the playlist down below. And also at the end of this video, I've also compiled all of this information into a printable. So if you'd like to have that, it might be handy to have with you when you're decluttering. You can find details for that down below as well. But first, let's get started. What actually even is decluttering? So here's the definition of decluttering. So declutter is a verb that means to remove unnecessary items from an untidy or overcrowded place. So if you watched our first video in this series, we talked about all of the benefits of minimalism, and hopefully you felt inspired to declutter, and that's why you're here. But like I mentioned at the beginning, decluttering is not always cut and dry, so today my hope is to make it a little bit easier. So let's start with the 3 B's, the 3 things you need with you every time you go to declutter. Okay, so the 3 B's are a box, a bin, and a bag, preferably a black trash bag, preferably a box that is donatable, can just get donated. This is our donation box. And the bin can be anything. This is gonna be our time will tell bin. And so the time will tell bin is a receptacle for things that we just don't know about. If you're not sure if you should donate something, that's okay. We can tuck it away in a time will tell bin and then pack that away. So I wanna demonstrate this to you here in our school area and show you how well this works. Okay, so I have my 3 B's here, and now I'm gonna start, right? And so what I can do is I can hold something up and say, okay, this is a folder that's never been used, and quite frankly, I don't anticipate us using, so I'm gonna put this in our donation box. Here's a book that our kids used to enjoy, but they don't go through it anymore. So this I want to donate. Here's a little craft project here that's been made, but no one's really using it or enjoying it anymore. So this is gonna go into our black trash bag. These were some flashcards that we got, but we haven't used them yet, and you know, we're at the end of another school year. I don't know if we actually are gonna use them. I'm gonna put them in my time will tell bin, and I'll see if I go back to them and pull it back out or not. In about 3 to 6 months, anything in here that I haven't gone back for or pulled back out, I consider that it's been time tested, and then I feel more confident donating these items, especially if they're things that we spent money on or we just don't know about. So you can see how having these right here with me is very helpful. It helps me to be able to make quick decisions, and I really do recommend that your black trash bags are black, because it is amazing how we can begin to second guess ourselves, or other members of our household can second guess our decisions as well. Now the question often comes up, where should I start when I'm decluttering? And I highly recommend starting in the kitchen. This is a place that we use so much, and for many of us, it does not function well. Now, we're gonna talk about kitchens more later in this series, but once we've picked our starting spot, it can also be helpful if we have some criteria or some questions or some guidelines. So I wanna share with you my guidelines, but then also those of some other minimalists. So for me, when it came to decluttering my house, I asked myself 2 questions. 1, am I currently using this? So again, in the words of Courtney Carver, minimalism is not a project in suffering. We are not trying to make our lives more difficult. So if I was currently using and enjoying an item, that very clearly stayed. But if I wasn't currently using it, I would ask, have I used it in the past year? Or do I know for sure that I'm gonna use it in the upcoming year? So I would look at an item and say, have I used this in the past year? No, I actually haven't. Do I know for sure I'm gonna use it in the upcoming year? I don't actually have any plans to make round cakes, right? I stick with my trusty bundt cakes now. And so then we wanna put it into one of our 3 B's, the bin, the box, or the bag. And if you feel confident, you can just let it go, put it in the donation box, or if you're just not sure, again, that's where that time will tell bin is really helpful. We can just toss it in there and then keep moving on with other items. And a question that Cass from Clutterbug asks often is, would you buy it again? Would you buy this chopper again? We wouldn't. We find that we don't use it because it's kind of a pain to clean, and most often we just use a knife and a cutting board. So this, I wouldn't buy this again, and we're not currently using it, so it's a good sign that it's safe to donate it or at least put it in the time will tell bin. Now, the minimalists have some questions of their own. They like to use the 20-20 rule. So they will say if you're not using an item and you can replace it in 20 minutes and for $20 or less, then go ahead and donate it and enjoy the freed up space in your kitchen, right? So 20 minutes, meaning is it a fairly common item to come by? So a waffle maker, yeah, they're pretty common, right? $20, yep, we actually got this one for free from my grandma, right? Probably you could find a waffle maker at a thrift store or on Marketplace in 20 minutes and for under $20 too, right? So if you're not using it, feel free to let it go. We're actually using this quite a bit now. One last rule that the minimalists use is the spontaneous combustion rule. And so what they'll ask you is if this item spontaneously combusted, it just disappeared off the face of the earth, how would you feel? If you would feel a sense of relief and, oh good, now I don't have to make a decision about that anymore, that's a pretty clear sign that it's time to let that item go. So today we give you permission to let go of items that are not serving you, they're not adding value, or you just don't like or enjoy using anymore. Now let's answer some frequently asked questions when it comes to decluttering. So number one, where should I donate the things that I want to get rid of? And that's a personal decision, but one thing I would recommend, especially if you're more at the beginning of your decluttering journey, is not to be a hero when it comes to decluttering. This comes from Dana from A Slob Comes Clean, and she'll say, you have to be realistic about where you're at. And we would all love to donate to the perfect place and make sure everything gets a second life, but sometimes that's not always possible. So you need to know what season you're in and how much time and energy you have to take care of donations. So for now, you might just need to go to one place that takes everything, has very flexible hours and not super long lines, trusting that in the future, if you want to be more selective or particular about where things go, that you'll be able to do that once you've freed up a little bit of extra space in your home. Number two is, should I sell items? Now for us, we had a $50 rule. So if we could sell something and earn $50 or more on that item, not that we paid $50 for it, but we could make $50 or more off of it, we decided to sell it. We also then had a 1 week rule with that. If we would list something and it was not selling, Tom was pretty aggressive about lowering the price pretty quickly, and if in the end it was not selling, then we would decide to donate it or discard it. And what if decluttering just feels hard? For some people, it's easier than others, and you might even notice that some items in your home are easier than others. Tip number one is to not start with hard stuff or sentimental items. So that's unique to each of us, but if there's certain areas that just feel very difficult, try to work up to those. Also, know that it does get easier. I like to look at it kind of like a mountain. As we're beginning our decluttering journey, it can feel very time-consuming and difficult. I've often said that when you're decluttering, you're faced with every wrong buying decision that you've ever made, and that can overload us. We start to suffer from decision fatigue, we feel overwhelmed, we feel guilty and shameful and bad about ourselves. You're not wrong if you've experienced that, but what you'll find is that as you free up space in your home, you start to enjoy the benefits of simplifying, and then it does get so much easier. To the point where you look around and say, what can I get rid of next? The question I use to declutter now is not have I used it, it's but could I get by without it? But again, that usually comes a little bit later in the journey. Question number 4, is it possible to declutter an area fully all at once? I personally don't think so. So we champion the onion method, which means you go through our house layer by layer. This is definitely what I did in my home, and as I worked with other women, it seems to be what most people use. And so it's okay if you come back to a space that you've already decluttered once or twice and find even more things to declutter. What happens is you're gaining confidence in yourself, and you're realizing that you're not missing the things that you've gotten rid of, and that gives you more confidence and courage to keep going further and further. And what if you have family members that don't agree with this journey that you're on? We're gonna tackle this in a full video, but in the beginning, I just focused on my own stuff, and that seemed to work really well. And you might be surprised how family members start to come around over time. Can you hear the lawnmower in the background? I'm trying to make these like really nice back to basics videos, and Adeline's mowing the lawn. It's good, it's okay. All right, so my best encouragement to you, always have your 3 Bs with you. Use the time will tell bin if you're getting hung up on anything. The time will tell bin can be very telling once you've time tested things to see if you actually miss them or not. All right, well, you can find the Back to Basics playlist down below, but I truly hope that you're finding these videos helpful. And do know that we have lots of other videos too. So I'd love it if you'd subscribe so we can spend even more time together, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.